We Are Change with host Howard Nema. Exposing the collectivist global elite's Malthusian quest for a new world order. A one-world dictatorial government where all aspects of human life are under their control. Truth Talk Radio, where news the mainstream media ignores is the top story and your voice is heard. We Are Change. Fridays from 1 to 3 p.m. and Saturdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hosted by Howard Nema. Only on informedradio.com. That's NFORMD radio.com. Tune in, call in. That's We Are Change with Howard Nema. Fridays 1 to 3 p.m. and Saturdays 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on informedradio.com.
Good afternoon, everybody. And it is 11/11/11, a very auspicious day, numerologically speaking. Many things to speak about. Today is also Veterans Day, and here in the United States. And Veterans Day, of course, we honor all those who have, some have given all, and some have given all their lives to defend our country, or, well, really to defend the quote-unquote national security interests of our country. I'm a great patriot, and I never personally served in the military, but I have the greatest respect for those that do. Unfortunately, the vast majority, especially those that, don't understand that wars are created for profits under the guise of liberty and freedom. And many times you want to fight for your country, and you're really fighting for ExxonMobil or Halliburton or any of these other major companies, which we all know control the military-industrial complex. Now, I live in the state of Connecticut, which is a military-industrial complex state. You have Electric Boat here. They make nuclear submarines. We have nuclear power here as well, Millstone Power Plant. It's all interconnected in this state. Also Sikorsky aircraft, and so the military-industrial complex has been sort of born and bred in Connecticut. It was here for all the wars. You look back to the Civil War, and that's where the Winchester Rifle Company, Colt. There's a tremendous military presence in Connecticut, as in Virginia and other areas in the other states. And the lobbies for these companies are extremely strong, and they're backed by the big banks, and they're backed by other conglomerates that have their little fishhooks in all the aspects. So war is a business, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody hasn't figured that out yet. It is a big business, and they cry and scream if you cut defense spending, because you're going to put all these people in Connecticut and other states out of work. And meanwhile, what are you doing? What are you really producing? You're producing what? You're producing death. And you're asking for money for more death. And death in the name of consolidating oil and lithium and heroin in Afghanistan. We have our own troops, the ones that are awake, coming back, Iraq veterans against the war, telling of the atrocities, telling of the drug dealing, and the fact that our troops are literally guarding poppy plants. Now, that must sicken everyone, but the Geraldo Rivera report was a real joke, saying how it must turn their stomach. This is part of their culture, is what they quote-unquote told the media. It is not part of their culture. It is part of the Illuminati's control grid and funding source for their assault upon sovereignty. And we're going to talk a lot about sovereignty today in the next 2 hours. In the second half of the second hour, I have also Jacques Williams will be joining me from the Torrington Culture and Arts Committee and the Singer-Songwriter Network here in Torrington, Connecticut. We also bringing raising political awareness through entertainment and media. There's a lot of people they don't want to listen to this type of stuff, but if you put it into a musical format or an entertaining format, it opens more minds. That is why I'm here, and that's why this is We Are Change. And you can always give us a call if you have any questions, or if you just want to chime in and rant about what you are feeling about the New World Order. I know it affects my emotions on a daily basis. You can reach us at 772-905-3018. And this is We Are Change again on informedradio.com. A lot of news today, as I was saying, but I'm talking a little bit about the military, so let's stay on that. And it is Veterans Day. Stay on that for a little while. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, 40 years later, was revealed to be a fraud, was revealed to be a false flag on our own government, on our own country, on our own people. It would be very sad if things like 9/11 and other false flags like Oklahoma City, it takes 40 years for the people to wake up to the reality and for the government to take ownership. The government does eventually take ownership, and usually the people are elderly or they're gone, or the people that have committed the crimes are dead, like E. Howard Hunt with all the information he gave about the Kennedy assassination and all the documents that were held back to be released. The total fraudulent Warren Commission, which is no better report, which is absolute fabrication, just like the 9/11 report. So our government is unfortunately complicit in very evil activities. One must divorce themselves from their belief systems that they were taught, especially in schools and in churches and other places, about God and country, and that we're the bastion of humanity and freedom and liberty. Hitler said the same thing to his minions about being the master race, and just calling it a master race or calling us the freedom of liberty people, there's no difference. The deception is the same. So we are being deceived, and the military is being deceived. I'm going to be going into Project SHAD and other projects and other operations where our own government, on record, has done tests on the American people. In 1965, there was a biological test, warfare test, in the subways of New York. That didn't come out. They've done many, many tests like this on the American people without telling them, like geoengineering, maybe, chemtrails. I mean, they don't tell you, but they do it. Then it comes out again many years later. And now the problem is, many years later is going to become a very difficult scenario because of the GMO foods that everybody is consuming, that after 3 generations, the 3rd generation's offspring are sterile. So as these years move on, and as the deception widens, correcting it and changing the direction becomes more complicated because everybody's dying. Now, this isn't a coincidence. This is their plan, like raising the retirement age for people that are going to die of cancer far before the time that they collect their Social Security, which they take $60, $70 out of my check. So, think about that. That you're probably going to die far before. I mean, folks that are in especially people in their 20s, because they're pumping them up with everything. And the Gardasil has been, again, found to be more problems. There are lawsuits now against Merck. I'm going to go over all of this. I have a whole stack of news. The 3 topics today that we're going to be discussing, of course, the numerological relevance to 9/11 and historic events, interestingly enough, that have relevance to the date September 11th, as well as 11/11/11, and the power, the power use of numerology for power. Now, again, this is the elites. Now, personally, I'm not a numerological expert. I wish my friend Chris Freedom Flowers, who has been studying this for years and years and years, and is a absolute authority on numerology, I did my best to do some great research that I'll be going through. Now, this is what they believe. They believe that certain numbers and certain events and certain dates will achieve them better results in their plan if they do it on those certain dates. And then there are things that begin agendas and end agendas. Like 9/11 was the beginning and then the end of agenda. 2012 is the rise of the New World Order. That is the actual 12/21/2012. I'll go through that. Will actually is the dawning of the true new age, the age of Aquarius, or the new age of reason, or whatever you want to call it, the New World Order. And the dates now, today, 11/11/11, is sort of the conception, if you want it, for lack of a better word, this is when it was conceived, and the birth will be on 12/21/2012. Now, again, this is not my opinion. I've just researched this, and this is what they believe to be true. Again, I'm not an expert on the numerological aspects, but I must say I was very fascinated how it is, as Chris pointed out, and I'm learning more and more, that these events and that are major events in the world occur on these dates for specific reasons. So it can't be a coincidence. I mean, 5 or 6 times in history, maybe you could say that's a coincidence. History is a long time. But when I go through the list of events and how radically important events they were, for example, on September 11th throughout history, you'd start to say to yourself, wow, that's a little bit more than a coincidence, and should certainly invoke further study. Now, here at We Are Change, what I'm really trying to do is alert people, especially anybody that's like skeptical. You know, I try to reach out to people on all the different pages and websites and media sources that advertise this show, especially my local community of people through Facebook and other medias. That I'm more interested in touching those that don't have the understanding of this, that don't believe this, that think that it's a crock of shit, that think that that I'm a nut, or I'm crazy, or I would have to be absolutely insane to spend the amount of time and effort doing this if it weren't true. So I would agree with you on that. But since everything that I tell you and report I have documented to be true through many sources, you have to just say to yourself, wake up and realize that we're being manipulated by the CIA, for example. The Project Mockingbird and Project Monarch control what we see on television, invade us with thoughts and subliminal messages, and it's a vast beacon of knowledge that you must obtain. But as you move through it, you'll find that everything connects to the same spot. It's an amazing spider web of evil, as I say every show, a bottomless pit of evil, but everything is interconnected. And even Veterans Day, I mean, this Masonic connection to the numbers and the numerology is where we're going with this particular, the main part of the show. But Veterans Day, this is from the mainstream news. This is from, I believe it was written by Philip Devlin. Looks like I erased the actual, accidentally erased the source, but I think it was, reminding myself it was from the New York Times. And it's hard to believe the level of avoidable casualties that occurred in the last 6 hours of World War I, all due to keeping the symmetry of the number 11 associated with the armistice. Very important point. This Friday is Veterans Day. For numerologists, it's doubly significant this year because it happens to be 11/11/11. November 11th used to be called Armistice Day because it was on this date in 1918 that an armistice to end World War I was signed in a railroad car in Compiègne outside of Paris. But the armistice that was signed that day would prove to make the numbers 11/11/11 unintentionally infamous for all time. News of the ceasefire spread quickly to all parts of the world, and it was a premature celebration because the war had not really ended. It had about 6 hours to go, as the ceasefire was to begin at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th hour.